Welcome to Education 500, Methods of Action Research. My name is Jennifer Gilbertson, and this is my Action Research Project. Action Research projects are used to show cause and effect, but prior to, you must establish an area of concern. For me, this will be an area of concern within my classroom. Once I've established this area of concern, I need to come up with my primary and secondary questions. So for my primary question and my area of concern, it is as follows. Will the use of motivation and reward assist in increasing the rate of successful course completion and student certification in Career Safe OSHA 10? My secondary questions established will support and help guide my research project also. These secondary questions are, number 1, are there any differences in the effectiveness of these methods based on students' demographic factors? This could include gender, age, or socioeconomic status. Number 2, how is student motivation measured before and after implementing the various methods used? And finally, number 3, what are the trends or patterns observed in the data regarding student motivation and reward over time? Now that we have addressed my area of concern and came up with my primary and secondary questions, it's time to dive into the research and to begin our literature review. However, before that, it is important to understand some background information. So the aim of this action research project is to investigate the effects of motivation and reward strategies such as praise, work planning, and guided notes on students' self-efficacy, their effort, and accomplishments in the classroom. My name is Jennifer Gilbertson, and I'm a registered nurse and a health science instructor at Dobyns-Bennett High School, located in Kingsport, Tennessee. Dobyns-Bennett is a Title I school with a 2,500 student population. Health science is my educational area of specialty, and I work with students who have an interest in entering into medical-based careers post-graduation. The age group I teach is freshman through senior, but my focus for this project is based on current grade point average, and class-ranked academically struggling freshmen and sophomores ages 14 and 15. These students vary by many factors, including sex, race, and socioeconomic factors. Each health science class seats 25 students. For the Action Research Project, we are utilizing 2 classes where I have gathered data from the 5 lowest scoring students from both the control and experimental class. This is going to represent 20% of each class and provides adequate data to continue with the project. At Dobyns-Bennett, we have great diversity in race, religion, and socioeconomic factors. The classes I teach are elective-focused career and technical courses based in healthcare. I chose this action research project because the addition of OSHA 10 certification to the health science classroom has been both beneficial and hindering. Comprehension and understanding of machinery, tools, and environments is complicated by the fact that high school students have yet to be immersed in a healthcare setting, so educating inexperienced students makes the material hard to comprehend. Breaking down the barriers and adding beneficial support to students struggling has been my overall goal. This project allows me to try and implement various tools that will contribute to their overall understanding and increase the numbers of successful completion and certification. So now we have addressed our area of concern, we have came up with our primary and secondary questions, and now you have some background information. We can actually dive into the research of the project. We're going to begin with literature reviews. In our literature reviews, we're going to look at areas that are going to help us to find things that we can incorporate into the classroom that will help with my primary question, which is addressing motivation and reward and helping with successful completion and certification in OSHA 10. The first literature article that I reviewed was about self-efficacy versus self-esteem. Self-efficacy focuses on one's beliefs and their ability to accomplish specific tasks or goals, and self-esteem refers to one's overall evaluation of their self-worth and personal value. Self-efficacy relates to confidence in specific. The article dives further into analyzing the students' personal perceptions of self-efficacy by detailing a framework for assessing students' abilities presented by Lindenbrick and Pentrick, which was in 2002. Our second research article was on motivating through praise. Praise can be a powerful tool to inspire and encourage students, helping them to develop a growth mindset and a sense of self-efficacy. Along with praise, the teacher should offer constructive feedback that helps students to identify areas for improvement. This balanced approach motivates students to strive for growth while recognizing their current achievements. The third article is the use of guided notes. The use of guided notes is one way to keep students engaged during lectures or times when attention and student focus is essential. Teachers can create or provide guided notes for students to help them stay engaged and interactive. Students can actively engage by filling in missing details, answering questions, and completing diagrams. This helps them to stay focused and actively process information, and this research was conducted by Heward in 2001. Our fourth literature review article was on work planning, and this talks about that helping students develop self-management skills through work planning is an excellent approach in the classroom. The plan, work, evaluate, and adjust method could be an effective framework to guide students in organizing their tasks and improving their productivity. And our fifth literature review article was on motivating and rewarding students who do not see an adequate payoff and find purpose in the work they're currently working on. So setting goals, providing feedback in reference to student performance, offering choices to aid in completion, providing incentives for successful completion, providing support, and creating a positive environment for the students to feel comfortable to seek assistance as needed are essential to the overall outcomes of OSHA 10 certifications. Student success is the purpose behind my action research project. Comprehension and understanding of OSHA regulations through the limited experience of a high school student makes the Career Safe OSHA 10 course both a daunting and challenging task for students. The addition of motivation and rewards encourages the students to dive in deeper into the guided tutorials and focus better on the information and assessments at hand. Throughout this process, I have gathered data to show the findings from the impact of incorporating these tools into the classroom and an assessment of barriers that may complicate the student's success. My research plan focused around incorporating a timeline into the students' weekly OSHA lessons. The goal was to create a tool for them to see a successful approach and guide to complete their OSHA 10 assignments within the scheduled time period. Group A, the control group, was not given this guide and they had to regulate their work independently. Group B was provided this helpful tool in hopes that it would motivate them and support their academic success. On the screen is a simplified timeline created for the students to use as a guide to complete their coursework. As you can see, it lists the tutorial and assessments that are supposed to be worked on weekly. It gives them a beginning date, which they would begin those specific tutorials, and a completion date in which they needed to have the assessments attached to the tutorials completed by. As part of our research project, we were to complete a timeline for the actual project itself. This timeline also helped me in the classroom. As you can see, I have this in phases. Phase 1 is the pre-assessment and initial planning phase. During this, we're going to set up Career Safe OSHA 10 accounts, conduct an OSHA 10 pre-assessment and gauge the students' occupational safety knowledge and identify areas of improvement. We're going to analyze the pre-assessment data and identify common patterns or factors affecting student motivation. We're going to formulate a research question or a problem statement based on the analysis of the pre-assessment data, develop a plan for implementing interventions to motivate students for testing based on the identified factors, and implement interventions targeting the identified factors to enhance students' motivation for testing. Phase 2 is the intervention implementation phase. We're going to introduce goal-setting strategies and encourage students to set specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant time-bound goals for their tutorial completions and assessments. Utilize positive reinforcement techniques, incorporate interactive and engaging teaching methods such as games, group discussions, and real-life examples to make the learning process more enjoyable. And then lastly, provide regular feedback and constructive criticism to help the students understand their strengths and areas for improvement. Phase 3 was our data collection and analysis phase. During this phase, we're going to collect data on the students' completion levels and performance during the intervention period, administer surveys or questionnaires to gather qualitative data on students' perceptions of their motivation and strategies they found effective, maintain regular communication with students to assess their motivation levels and gather feedback on the effectiveness of the interventions, collect quantitative data such as test scores or completion rates, and measure the impact of these interventions. Next is phase 4. This is the reflection and adjustment phase. In this phase, we're going to analyze the data collected during the intervention period, compare pre- and post-intervention data to identify any significant changes in students' comprehension and knowledge of OSHA 10, consider individual differences and variations among student groups, identify strengths and weaknesses of the interventions, and reflect on the findings and make adjustments to the interventions if needed. Our final phase is phase 5, and this is the continued implementation and evaluation phase. During this time period, we're going to summarize the overall findings and insights gained from the Action Research Project and create a final report detailing the research questions, interventions implemented, data collected, analysis, and the overall outcomes. This Action Research Project will employ a mixed methods approach. Firstly, quantitative data will be collected through performance metrics to quantify the relationship between motivation, reward, performance. Secondly, qualitative data will be obtained through interviews to gather in-depth insights into students' perceptions, preferences, and experiences with motivation and reward systems. The research was conducted with a small sample group of our health science students. Data was reviewed weekly, which allowed for frequent progress checks for each class. Below is going to be an image of an assessment of Group A's overall class scores. But first, let me go over these. There was a significant increase with the use of rewards in early and timely completion. Early completion meant free class time, allowing the students to use the available time as needed. Students were very receptive to this reward, and many purposefully worked ahead to take advantage of this opportunity. We generated a timeline that proved to be successful, and the timeline supported student accountability and autonomy. This helped guide their work and time spent weekly working on tutorials, and students noted an increase in self-efficacy when working ahead or within the scheduled time allotted. I also discovered that screen monitoring was a very useful tool. Observations showed that students' focus was better when Chromebook screens were monitored by the instructor, and screen times via Career Safe Teacher Link was noted to be less per tutorial due to monitoring and the inability for distractions. As discussed earlier, here is a sample from the Teacher Link page on CareerSafe, which shows a sample Group A, which is our control group, their actual assignments. So this is going to show each tutorial and the grades that the students had. This is going to be the sample for the program in itself. So this shows from the introduction of OSHA all the way through to the final assessment. Via Teacher Link on Career Campus, I'm able to follow the entire class at once. As you can see, Group A, it says there are a total of 18 students. In the class, there is actually 25, but 7 had previously completed OSHA assignments in a previous class. But this gives us some information, graphs, and data for the class overall. Of course, for this project, I will take the 5 students as discussed earlier and give you the updated data on them. The next image is actually going to be Group B, which is the group that was given the timeline and the reward system. Note that for Group A, they have an overall completion rate of 88% with no self-help and no timeline or motivation added. The same information provided through Teacher Link on CareerSafe shows that Group B, having 22 students with 3 students completing OSHA 10 previously, had a completion rate of 100%. This is through the use of a timeline and motivation and reward. Using the information provided by the Teacher Link on CareerSafe, I was able to pull the information specific to the 5 students from each control group and come up with my own percentages. So as you can see for Group A, the control group, Group A's 5 most vulnerable students had a 60% successful completion rate without the use of motivation and reward among the 5 students most at risk. We also had a median average final assessment for Group A with a score of 48. And the median average seat time for Group A was 15 hours and 6 minutes. For Group B, this group actually had the timeline, motivation, and rewards implemented. They had a 100% successful completion rate with the implementation of these efforts. The median average final assessment for Group B was a score of 83.2, and the median average seat time for Group B was 13 hours and 4 minutes. So in reflection, I feel that this Action Research Project has proven successful by including motivational factors such as praise of effort and completion, incorporating rewards, and offering recognition of success. This has brought about an overall sense of improved self-efficacy for the students. The drudgery and dread students once focused on when faced with these assignments was altered, and a more positive environment was created, which impacted the results too. Through my literacy research, I learned ways to use information to aid the planning of OSHA 10 for future classes, and this was a very effective tool in giving drive and motivation for the students involved. What is the future impact from this project? I'm going to continue the timeline. I want to encourage students to team together to work through OSHA scenarios and course assessments, and I want to increase the motivation for students through various means of reward. Recommendations I'd like to make: take time to